pick and prevail in your fantasy football league with the help of our starting lineup. At host to quarterback the show, we have Nick Giacobbe. Up next, a dual threat in Dynasty and Daily Fantasy, we have Cody Repass. And finally, working the waiver wire, we have Nick Cap. These are your playmakers that will provide you with sleepers, breakouts, and busts to help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the Primetime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 22 of the Primetime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, in the hopes that we help you prevail throughout the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host every single week, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me is the new owner of the Green Bay Packers, Nick Cap. Nick, talk to me a little bit about this purchase that you made today of this fine franchise that I'm not really happy with at the moment.
I'm super excited. Newest shareholder of the Green Bay Packers. We are going far. We are going the distance, and I am so happy to be supporting this phenomenal franchise.
I don't like the Packers. I don't like Aaron Rodgers. I don't like the Packers. I don't like my own team a lot either. So, but we're not.
I'm rocking the Jordy Nelson jersey, the only Packers jersey that I've ever owned, and a little snug, but we're going to adjust. We're going to grow with the team,
I'm not putting on any Seahawks merchandise today. Nick, would that jersey fit me right now? Just to be clear, I'm like 5'4", maybe 5'5" on a good day. 5'4", maybe like 115 pounds, maybe on a good day. Again, like I don't have a lot of weight on me. Just who I am. So what is that jersey fitting me? Like, where are we?
It might be a little bit of a dress on you, but you can fit nice in it. You can fit nice.
What about in like New York snow weather? Like I'm going to MetLife for a game, like over a jacket.
Oh, absolutely. You could throw your little sweatshirt on. You could throw this beautiful jersey right on top.
All right. Enough jersey talk. Enough Packers talk for now. We're going to get into the show, guys. We're actually live at the moment. It is Tuesday, November 16th. We're doing this live. We drop shows on a Tuesday, so the replay will be live tonight if you want to listen to the audio version or watch the video version on YouTube. But if you are joining us live for the fun of it because you saw it on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, welcome. We'll be doing this for the next hour. Our segments include, but not limited to, injury wrap-up from the week. We're going to talk about Week 10 studs and duds. We're going to give you some waiver wire picks. It's not a lot. It is slim pickings on the waiver wire in Week 11. We're still going to give them to you. And we're going to end the show with a couple guys you may want to trade for if you're in a dynasty league or if you're in a keeper league and your season's kind of wrecked at the moment. Some guys that you could kind of trade for. So that's our show for today, and we're looking forward to it. So if this is your first time watching or listening, welcome, and thank you so much. This show is on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. For the Tuesdays and Friday show, the audio version of the podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere where you could find an audio podcast, you could find the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. If you are on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It really does help. If you're watching on YouTube, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Hit that subscribe button, a like, share it with your friends. We'd appreciate that. Our social media channels on YouTube, on Facebook is Primetime Fantasy Podcast. Please give us a like and a subscription for those. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, a follow would be greatly appreciated. The app for that is PrimeTimeFFPod. And our last show of the week, that's on Sundays, is a live show on our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. The time does vary. Usually do around 11:30, but we did a little bit earlier last week. So we'll let you guys know as the weeks go on, but I think we'll be probably doing around 11:30 for this week. So that's enough plugs. For the moment, let's get into some injury updates and some news from Week 10. Start off with Big Ben. He tested positive for COVID. I think it was Saturday night, if I'm correct. I think he let the team know, and everybody was calling Big Ben a knight in shining armor for letting the team know that he was feeling sick, and everybody was giving props to Big Ben for doing a normal human courtesy. So congrats to Big Ben. Give him a medal for that one.
Could be worse. It could be like my franchise's quarterback who doesn't tell anybody that whether his vaccination status. It could be someone like that.
Oh, he was. What word did he use?
He was immunized.
Immunized. Yep. He had the horse paste.
Great public relations from my quarterback.
Yeah, just great. So Big Ben, not much news to talk about here, but he is going to be virtual this week doing team meetings, and I think he's going to miss the Charger game if he is positive. I don't even think he can test negative twice. I think he's going to be out for 2 weeks. So Big Ben's probably out next week. Mason Rudolph probably fills in. More Steelers injury news. Chase Claypool with his toe is supposed to practice tomorrow, according to Mike Tomlin. We'll give you more updates on Friday on that, but if he does practice tomorrow, that's a good sign that Claypool will play this week, so that'll work well in the favor of Mason Rudolph and the rest of that Steelers offense. First bit of injury news that we can really talk about, Dallas Goddard suffered a concussion, or he's in concussion protocol. I think he went out in the second quarter, and Goddard's been pretty productive. I believe he's at over 10 fantasy points, I think 4 out of the last 5 weeks or something. So, Nick, I think a pretty big blow not a pretty big blow, but a blow to your team. If Dallas Goddard was your starter, you probably only got, I think he had 5 points, maybe less than 5 points. I forget the number that he had when he went out. But a tough blow to a very thin position of your team. So, go get Dan Arnold off your waiver wire if you have Dallas Goddard, because he might not play this week. So, do you have anything else to say about that one?
Nah, not really.
Yeah, there's really nothing else to say with that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, pretty good chance to play according to Andy Reid, so you could get him back in your lineups. Daryl Williams had a pretty good night on Sunday night. He was a running back 1. We'll talk about him in a couple of minutes. So, I don't know. You think it's going to be running back by committee? You think Clyde Edwards-Helaire just gets the bell cow role? Like, what do you think for Clyde Edwards-Helaire if he is playing next week against the Cowboys?
I mean, Daryl Williams had a monster week this week. It's going to be tough for, the team to kind of know what to go forward with. In my opinion, Clyde's not the best running back in that backfield. I said that since his rookie year. I didn't see the talent, the first 4 weeks of that season, and to me, he hasn't improved much at all as a runner. He hasn't improved much as a pass catcher. And as long as Tyreek and Kelsey are there, you really don't know who that number 3 option is on the team. And most situations, you're not starting the number 3 option unless it is the running back. So, for me, Clyde's still going to be the guy that they go to, but I don't think it's the right decision. I think Williams would be the better guy moving forward. I'd reevaluate that running back room, though, at the end of this year.
Yeah, I think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire might have been a bust for them because he hasn't really he hasn't been the running back that they thought he would be. And it's funny because the Chiefs haven't been a running team. I know they have Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league. I know that they have an air raid offense. I know that. I know. I'm not stupid. I know. But we saw what Andy Reid did with Jamal Charles for years, and I think they've still been trying to find that Jamal Charles. But for Daryl Williams, he's had in 5 games, he's had 3 games over 15 points, 2 of them over 20 points in ESPN standard leagues. I'd have to look up Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I feel like he hasn't done that. I got to look this up right now. Bad radio. Okay, pulling up Clyde Edwards-Helaire's stats right now. He hasn't cracked 20 once. He's had 19. He's had 16. He's had 2 weeks under 5. Daryl Williams has been the better fantasy running back for Kansas City. We may have a running back by committee approach. We may have a little controversy. We'll see where that goes. But if you're a Daryl Williams owner, I'm going to say hang on to him for sure. Put him on your bench maybe if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is playing, but you got to hang on to him. I think so at least. Nick's favorite running back in the league, Cordell Patterson, sprained his ankle in an atrocious loss to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like the Atlanta Falcons. I am no longer saying good things about the Atlanta Falcons on air or to friends, because the Atlanta Falcons, anytime I say something nice about them, they just seem to fail me. So, yeah, I don't really like the Atlanta Falcons. So, Nick, I saw some rumors earlier that this injury to Cordell Patterson could sideline him a few weeks, but then I also saw that he was day-to-day. So I think it's something that we're going to learn more about come Wednesday and Thursday when practice happens for the Falcons. But assuming he's out, how big of a blow is it to your fantasy team?
I mean, Cordell Patterson, he was the number 1 waiver wire pickup of the year. Let's not mistake anything. He's been the guy you picked up week 1 that you've been able to start every week since. He's on a short week this week, so he's not. This is very unlikely he's seeing New England. And if you're not 100% against New England, you're not going to deliver. This New England team is just as good as it was near the end of Tom Brady's career there in his time. Outside, the team looks good. The team's good. The defense is good. It's a tough matchup for Atlanta anyways. Mike Davis is going to be useless in this game. I do not think he's a good player.
He's been useless the whole season. Even when he was the running back 1, he was useless.
Even with Cordell out, not there, I don't think they trust Mike Williams enough to play him a big enough role where he's going to be productive. So, it's coming down to, can Kyle Pitts deliver? And New England shuts down your number 1 option, and that's Kyle Pitts. So,
Matt Ryan can't deliver, that's for sure.
I would not trust Atlanta in this matchup. I could see New England handling them just like Dallas did.
I don't know what the spread is, but I'm taking the Patriots in my spread pool. I took the Falcons this week. I hate the Falcons. I hate the Falcons. Spurs like 9.5. I hate the Falcons. Games. Baker Mayfield has a knee contusion. Kevin Stefanski still expects him to play. They're labeling it as a bruise. I know you don't like Baker, Nick. I know that a lot of people rag on Baker, but he goes out there with every injury on the planet at the moment. And he's like the fish from SpongeBob that's in the cast, walking out there with bandages all over him. I give him credit. I give him credit for being a warrior, but I still don't really want to play. 3 different
injuries this season. Cleveland, do not pay this guy. This is now a quarterback that's under average performance-wise when he's healthy, and has now sustained 3 injuries this year alone. Has sustained an injury, I think, every year of his pro career, maybe besides his rookie year so far. Baker Mayfield's not reliable health-wise, and he's not reliable as a quarterback, and that's behind the number 1 offensive line in football. So I really don't want to hear any more about Baker. Baker should not be the starter next year in Cleveland.
He definitely shouldn't be on your fantasy roster.
That is for sure.
And as for his wide receivers, I don't really see anybody that you would even comfortably start every week, even at a flex play. I don't think any of their wide receivers crack the top 50. I forget what Donovan people. I'm looking through the list right now. I don't see any Brown on this list. So it was the Dearness Johnson show. They're a running team. So whoever's a running back there is a start, but Baker's not a start, and the receivers, Austin Hooper, none of them are a start, whether Baker's quarterback or not. This quarterback should be starting. Cam Newton, according to Matt Rule, is getting most of the reps this week, but he will not he will not name him the starter. I think he should be named the starter, though.
He'll be named the starter by the end of this week.
PJ Walker's not starting. I think I wanted Seattle to get Cam Newton. I really did, because those 2 games that Geno played and that they lost were close. They went to overtime against Pittsburgh. They almost went to overtime against New Orleans. They were close, winnable games. I still, again, it's not a Seahawks podcast, not a football podcast, it's a fantasy podcast, but I still just don't understand why they didn't go get Cam Newton. Why they trusted Geno Smith. I can't do it. But as for the Carolina Panthers, I think Cam Newton's much better suited for that offense. I think he'll play better with Robbie Anderson, your guy. He scored a touchdown, so Robbie Anderson might be fantasy relevant. I picked him up right before that game because you or your brother that had the stat about Robbie Anderson and Cam Newton or something like that.
That was not me. It might have been him.
Yeah, there was some stat about Robbie Anderson that actually convinced me to go pick him up in my dynasty league. They have the football team next week. The football team have not been good against teams on defense. I know they just trap game against Tampa, but I think that'll be a good game. And I think Cam Newton's playable. He's going against Ron Rivera, though, which is an interesting matchup. But anyway, Nick, is Cam Newton a guy you're picking up? Is he good for, and is he a guy that's kind of good for the Panthers fantasy wise?
I'm not sure I don't know what the bye weeks look like this week. I'm sorry, I should have been prepared with that one. But I mean, if you got a quarterback on bye that you plan on playing, Cam Newton's a starter. If Cam Newton's announced the starter, which I think he will be by Thursday or by Friday, the latest, you got to start him. Washington's been pretty pathetic on the back end. You got 2 good receivers. McCaffrey's playing out of his mind right now. Had 26 without a touchdown this past week. You got to trust this team. You got to trust them. And Cam Newton delivered in fantasy. That's what he always did. Even at the end of his New England run when he wasn't getting in the end zone because he didn't have weapons.
Didn't he have 2 rushing touchdowns this week? I know he had 1. I think one might.
He had a rushing touchdown to start, and then he had a passing touchdown on his second snap.
So I think he's good for like 2 or 3 touchdowns. So I mean that's what you want in a quarterback, and the rushing touchdown will give you another 2 points in standard leagues. So that's a guy you can really consider starting him. The teams on bye are the Rams and the Broncos. So Matt Stafford's probably the only one affected by that.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you're the Stafford owner and you're relying on him every week, you need a streamer. Cam Newton's your guy. I think Cam Newton can finish as a top 12 quarterback rest of the season with this offense if they leave him in as a starter over Darnold when he gets back.
Aaron Jones, a mild MCL sprain. He's out 1 to 2 weeks. It was the A.J. Dillon show. He's their number 1 waiver pickup on the week if he's available in your leagues. If you're an Aaron Jones owner, I mean, we said it weeks ago during our stash and trash segments, which we're not really doing anymore because we're so late in the season at this point. There's nobody that you really want to.
You got to know at this point. Come on.
Yeah, right. But if you are we said it, you need to have A.J. Dillon if you are an Aaron Jones owner. If not, there's no reason to. He's rostered in 58% of leagues, so he's probably not available. But if he is, go get A.J. Dillon. But yeah, I mean, if you have Aaron Jones, it's a big blow to your team. If you don't have A.J. Dillon, if you have A.J. Dillon, slot him right in, and you'll be fine.
What's weird about this injury is it's called a mild MCL sprain, and the timetable is 1 to 2 weeks. What's really going to suck is it's probably going to lean on the 2 week side, and could go 3. If it goes 3 weeks, that's an IR spot that you could have had, and you could have picked someone up. At the end of the day, that's what's the most annoying part, because usually when you see a good team with an injury, they'll rest the guys rather than play them. Green Bay, my Packers, we're going to the playoffs. We're gonna have home field advantage. It's gonna happen. So, they're gonna lean conservative on bringing him back. So AJ running back for 2 to 3. Even if Jones gets back on the field in 2 weeks, they're not going to play him 100% of snaps. You're going to see a lot like Mccaffrey, his first week back, where they played him. I think it was 35% in the first half and then 60% in the second half.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, and then next injuries, the 49ers, we got injury updates like an hour ago. Deebo Samuel had a knee contusion on his shin. He's day-to-day. He was the number 1 fantasy wide receiver on the week. I'm not super worried about him since he dropped 30 points last night. Elijah Mitchell, broken finger. He's getting a procedure, I think, done today or tomorrow.
Yep.
To be decided on that. And Elijah Mitchell, he didn't have a good week this week, but he did a back-to-back weeks, I think, with 20-plus fantasy points. So that's somebody that you're probably starting at a running back too. So, Nick, how worried are you with either of these injuries?
I mean, my biggest question mark is, who the hell are you playing now? Because I don't trust them to play Jeff Wilson, and I don't trust them to use Duke enough to replace the Deebo. So, who is outside of George Kittle on that team? I don't know. If not playing, I don't trust Ayuk yet. If Mitchell's not playing, I don't trust Wilson or Sermon, even though one of them is going to have a good week, because the Niners always manage to run the ball well. Even for the past 3 years, it feels like they always have a running back that delivers, but none of them can stay healthy enough. So the question is, who do you play? And the answer is, we don't know, because Shanahan hasn't given us any leeway to trust anybody outside of George Kittle in that offense.
No. And Deebo. So we'll see what happens at the end of the week. We'll see what happens at the end of the week when it comes to 49ers injuries. So those are all the injuries and news that we have for this week. Let's go to the weekly wrap, talking about studs and duds from week 10, starting off with the quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, number 1, 36 fantasy points. Number 4, Mack Jones, 19 fantasy points. Those are the 2 most notable ones I have here. And there's a couple others there, Nick, if there's anybody else you want to talk about. But who is your biggest quarterback stud of the week?
We've been ripping on him for a month. It's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes hasn't delivered on his number 1 ADP. Well, there you go. No quarterback scored within 10 points of him this week. Mahomes went off. I saw this great stat on I forget, maybe it was Monday Night Football or on ESPN. Mahomes had 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's the 3rd time in his career, and he is now tied all time for 400-yard, 5-touchdown games. Tied with Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, and Joe Montana. Okay, that's the class of quarterback that he's hit.
Wow.
Mahomes is a phenomenal talent. He struggled the last month, and this past week they figured out this was their get-right game, and nobody in the AFC differentiated themselves. No quarterback in the NFL that was above him. Tom Brady, who's been delivering consistently, Lamar, who's been consistent, delivered this week. So Mahomes just said, hey, you're all going to take a week off. I'm not. I'm coming right back. I'm showing you why I'm the best quarterback in football. And he did it. And he's going to continue to do it for the rest of the season.
I also want to mention about Mahomes, all the media was saying, Mahomes is back. He never left. I know he wasn't playing well, but the reason why you said he was back is because the expectation for Patrick Mahomes is up here because of what the media's made him out to be. The media has made him out to be an untouchable god that throws a perfect spiral with every throw, can do no wrong. He has a touch of gold when he slings it. That's what the media has driven in people's minds when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. And that's just not true. Patrick Mahomes has had the best offensive system probably in the league since he came in. I mean, McVay's system is phenomenal too. That's probably the only one that you could rival. But Patrick Mahomes has had probably the best offensive-minded head coach. He's had the best wide receiver in the league, the best tight end, always at a top 5 tight end offensive line. The run game's really the only thing he hasn't had since he entered the league. And he played behind Alex Smith for a year. He got to learn from Alex Smith for a year and also take reps in practice. I'm not saying he's not good. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that anything like that, but Patrick Mahomes wasn't thrown to the Wolves. I'm not trying to rag on the Jets, but he wasn't thrown into the Jets. He wasn't thrown into the Jaguars. He wasn't thrown into the Lions. Patrick Mahomes wasn't thrown to the Wolves. Patrick Mahomes was given the key to the kingdom. That's what Mahomes has been given. You shouldn't be surprised about any of this. So the expectation is so high that when Patrick Mahomes plays a tiny bit down to average, people are losing their minds. It's like the Joker gif. Well, I forget what the line the Joker says about losing their minds, but that's kind of what it comes down to. So my point being with Patrick Mahomes is that the guy never left. Like, the talent was never not there. The league didn't figure out Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are always going to be fine. I've said it on air on the show multiple times that the Chiefs are still going to the AFC Championship game, and they're still going to the AFC Championship game. So anybody losing their minds about Patrick Mahomes being back isn't a football knowledgeable watcher. That came out really bad. Isn't knowledgeable about football, thinking that Mahomes was figured out or wasn't going to rebound. Anyway, that's my rant on Patrick Mahomes. I still don't think he was worth being the number one quarterback drafted. I still wouldn't have drafted in rounds 4 or 5, even after this week, because it's only 1 week. But let's talk about Mack Jones.
Just so you know, after that week, Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback 1 in fantasy now. So only took 1 week to recover.
Did he have his bye yet? I don't think he had his bye yet.
He has not had his bye.
There you go. He's not going to be number 1 at the end of the season. Big Josh is stepping right in there still.
Let's see. In average, he is number 4 at the moment. So
Who's Josh Allen?
He's not far off, but
you know where Josh Allen is on average?
I think Josh Allen was 3. Let me just
Who's
double
1?
check. Oh no, Josh Allen is 1.
There you go. Josh Allen's the quarterback 1 of the week. I'm sticking to my guns. He's going to end the year as the quarterback 1. I want to talk about Mack Jones a little bit, because on our midseason awards last week, you said that what did you say about the rookie quarterbacks? The biggest bust?
Not a single rookie quarterback is above the quarterback 23 last week.
Mack Jones is at 20 right now, and Mack Jones had 20 fantasy points, 19.92, excuse me, almost 20 fantasy points. And the Patriots have a winning record. What's their record is 6-4. 6-4. They're a playoff team at the moment, and Mack Jones is playing very well. And some people are even saying that is a ridiculous statement. I'm not backing this statement. Some people in the media are saying that Mack Jones is playing better at his age than Tom Brady was. That's not my statement. Again, the media. It's a lot of fun, the media. But I think Mack Jones will be fine going forward, and Mack Jones has the Atlanta Falcons next week. So if you need to stream a quarterback, go pick up Mack Jones.
Thursday.
He's going to obliterate the Falcons on Thursday night. If you're listening to the show on Tuesday or Wednesday, he's going to obliterate the Falcons.
I'm predicting this. They're not starting out with a 28-3 lead. And if they did, I would still bet on the Patriots to make the comeback.
The quarterback duds on the week. Aaron Rodgers, 18, 10.4 points. Matt Stafford, quarterback, 19, 9.8. Russell Wilson, 26, 5.6 points. And Matt Ryan, 0.68 points.
It was a very off week for these quarterbacks.
Nick, who's your biggest quarterback dud on the week?
I mean, it was a big off week for all quarterbacks. There's only 3 guys that finished with above 20 points this week. So, I'm not going to rag on everybody too hard. All I got to say, Aaron Rodgers, new team owner, we're going to the moon, baby. We're going to the moon. That's all I got to add.
I got to talk about my guy. I do. I got to do something real quick. So the live viewers or the ones watching are going to get a treat right here. So, last year when Russell Wilson wasn't playing well, in my old apartment, that plaque right there, I had it like laying down or something. It was like not hung up, but it was somewhere. And when Russell Wilson stopped playing well, I took the plaque and I turned it around. He didn't deserve to be shown.
Put Russell Wilson in a corner.
I don't want to take the plaque off, so he's gonna get one of these. So give me 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Oh man.
So he is no longer, for those of you that are not watching, I have a plaque of Russell Wilson holding up the Lombardi trophy, and it's signed. I have now put an L in place of the Lombardi trophy. It's a big giant L, because that's all Russell Wilson did. He held an L for the Seahawks. He held an L for all of your fantasy teams. Luckily, my fantasy teams, one of them that I played Russell Wilson with won. The other one did not, because he scored like 5.8 points or something. So he's holding an L, and I got to talk about it because Russell Wilson was horrible. I watched Russell Wilson play football for now, I think year 11, year 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. I've watched just about every Russell Wilson game. There's not many that I've missed. The first 2 or 3 seasons, I didn't have NFL Sunday tickets, so I missed a couple games. But I've basically watched in, 11 years. I mean, how many football games is that? Like 160 maybe? What's the number? You're a math guy. 160 football games. I watched him play a lot of those. I've watched him play bad games. I watched him throw 5 picks against the Packers in Lambeau. I watched him throw 4 in that NFC Championship game. I watched him play terribly against Carolina in the playoffs, Atlanta. I've watched him play bad football games. This is probably a top 2 or 3. If I would have to go back and look. This was a terrible Russell Wilson game. There was nothing I could take away from this game where I could say Russell Wilson looked good. He looked nervous, and the offensive line wasn't giving him time from the beginning, but he looked nervous and scared. He looked indecisive. He didn't know where to throw the ball. He was holding it for too long. He took some sacks. He wasn't accurate. A lot of his passes were overheads. They were low. No accuracy. My biggest worry with Russell Wilson, though, he played dumb. He played stupid. Some of his throws were stupid. I'm talking about, I watched him. He's down 10 points. I'm watching him launch a deep bomb. And last year when Russell Wilson would launch a deep bomb, it was the most exciting play in football because you knew it was DK. You knew it was Tyler Lockett. You knew it was a pretty deep ball. This was not a pretty deep ball. I watch him launch it to the end zone, and I see Tyler Lockett sandwiched between 2 defenders. I threw my hands over my head, and I say, I have to watch the replay of an aerial view to see what he saw. Maybe the safety made a great play. Maybe the safety cut across the field. No. Tyler Lockett was double covered the whole time. You're down 10 points. You're on the 40. Stupid. He played stupid. The injury wasn't to the brain. The injury was to the finger, and he played stupid. And that's what worries me about Russell Wilson right now, is that he's making stupid throws. It wasn't good. None of it was good. The interception in the end zone. Why? Why did you throw that ball? And it wasn't a pick, by the way. Your Packers got very lucky with that one. It was not a pick.
The Packers got a shutout.
Yeah. First time Russell Wilson's ever been shut out, by the way.
Yep.
That's my Russell Wilson rant, because the biggest bust of the week. You can't post hype videos of you working out and the Succession theme, I think, was playing in the background or something, or whatever it was. You cannot make all these social media posts act like you're hyped to come back and then play like that. That's like, it's like going to a restaurant that has the best steak on the planet and it comes out with bugs in it. Just terrible. Terrible play by Russell Wilson. He is the Cardinals next week. That's your game of the season right there, buddy. Because guess what? If Russell Wilson doesn't play well this game, I want him shut down for the season because something's off. I don't want to see him step on the field this season.
Just real quick, from one green team to another, just real quick, I just want to make a proposal to you. I will trade you your first-round draft pick and my Wilson for your Wilson and our safety back. I'll take my safety back, too.
What's really got a pick, though?
It's anyway, all good. I got my Green Bay. We got the number 7 pick from you guys.
I haven't ranted in a long time. That was a rant, all right. They got it all out there. Terrible, Russell Wilson, terrible. And Matt Ryan also. I predicted Matt Ryan have a good week. No good. On to the running backs. Daryl Williams, running back 1 on the week with 29 points. Talked about him a bit. Ramondre Stevenson, 27 points with Damian Harris out, running back 2. Running back 6, Dearness Johnson, 22 points. Antonio Gibson finally cracks the top 10 with 21 points at running back 7. And Dalvin Cook had a really great game. I think it might have been his first 20-point game of the season at running back 8. Who is your biggest running back stud of the week?
So those top 3 names, I'm not taking much away from any of the 3. Most of them were opportunity because of injury, or all of them were opportunity because of injury. 7 and 8, Gibson finally took long enough. Dalvin Cook took long enough. You know, who's been dealing with injuries, bounced back a little. Talk about someone you didn't say. And he's someone that you didn't say because he's established himself as the running back 1 now. He's the running back 1 in fantasy. He's Jonathan Taylor. This team goes as far as Jonathan Taylor carries that team. This dude has a breakaway run every single game. He's destroying teams on the ground. He is a dual threat running back. He is powerful. He's the size of a linebacker, but he run one of the fastest running backs. Jonathan Taylor is an absolute tank. He's a monster at running back, and this team figured out how to use him. They really did, and that's why Jonathan Taylor is getting this production. That's why he's the running back 1 in fantasy, and that's why I said at the start of the year he'd finish as the RB1 in fantasy.
I mean, yeah, he would have a couple more touchdowns too if it wasn't for the Colts' terrible play calling within the 5-yard line.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Antonio Gibson, I do want to mention, very touchdown dependent, only at 64 yards, which isn't bad at all, but he did have 2 touchdowns, I believe, one at the end of the game. Dearness Johnson, another 20-point game there's the second game that when he was the starter, he had 20 points. So just look out for that. If Nick Chubb is back this week, you're starting Nick Chubb. But I don't know what the Browns' contract situation is, but I don't know why they would keep Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt when they have Dearness Johnson in the wings because he could carry the load over there. Just saying. I don't think Nick Chubb's gotten paid yet. I think Hunt may have. I'd have to look that one up.
Hunt's contract ends, I think, this year.
Yeah, then they're not going to re-sign him because Dearness Johnson is a tank. He's a tank. All right, on to the bust with the running backs. Javonte Williams, 6.9 points. Myles Gaskin, 5.5. Cordell Patterson, 4.9. And Alex Collins, 4.1. I played Alex Collins in 2 leagues because he's a big bust. It was snowing. I thought Pete would try to #establish the run. Just didn't work out. Didn't really get to the goal line. 4.1 points. I think Collins has had under 10 points like 3 out of 4 weeks. So we need to get Carson back in that lineup.
So, I mean, I've said this again, and I've said this since the start of the year. When everybody's healthy on the field, there's only one backfield where you trust 2 running backs, and it is the best running team in football, the Cleveland Browns. You trust Kareem Hunt, you trust Nick Chubb to carry your load. Javonte Williams is a very good running back, but as long as Melvin Gordon's there, he's not going to consistently finish as a top 24 running back. It's not going to happen. When there's 32 running backs every week getting the ball, the running back 2 on a team is not going to deliver unless you're Kareem Hunt and your team's going to run the ball 35 times a game and pass 5 times to your backup running back. That's the only way 2 running backs in the same backfield will consistently have production, and it's why I've said I don't trust any other team to do it. Nyheim Hines had some glimmers of hope. Jamal Williams, Ty Johnson's starting to look a little decent. But there's really been, I mean, even what's their face? Arizona's another team where the 2 look good. That's really it. Even Pollard's has flashes, but no one's been consistent enough where you're going to start both. So just keep that in mind. If you're running back, if you have to play a backup running back on a team, I don't care if it's, Phillip Lindsay. It's more likely Phillip Lindsay as the starting running back in Houston is going to outperform the backup running back in most teams. It's going to happen. Keep that in mind as you get down the stretch of these playoffs.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point. Let's move on to wide receivers now. Wide receiver 1 on the week, Deebo Samuel has been a top 5 fantasy wide receiver on the year. Probably the biggest steal of the draft too. Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 2. This is the Diggs that you drafted around 1 or 2, 30.2 points. Wide receiver 5, Kendrick Bourne, 24 points, and wide receiver 8, Davonte Smith. Who is your biggest wide receiver stud of the week?
So
I hate Deebo. You should talk Deebo.
I hate fantasy bonuses. I hate them. I don't know why we do them. And the stupid 40-yard touchdown at the end of the game when they're up 17 points ends your fantasy week because of a 2-point bonus. And then my kicker wants to miss a pat just to further it's unbelievable. Deebo's had a great year. There's no reason he should have been drafted under Brandon Ayuk. I mean, it's clear as day now. He was, 5 rounds later, 4 rounds later?
Ayuk should be on waivers. You're running off a name of a rookie second-year wide receiver, so he should be on waivers, by the way. I know you're not saying that, but he should be on waivers.
He should be. But based off ADP, everybody drafted Brandon Ayuk before Deebo, and there wasn't even a second thought about it. That was stupid. That was stupid by the fantasy community. Let's be honest. There was no reason Deebo should have been drafted after this guy. Deebo's been consistently solid. Ayuk's had a couple good games at the end of an unhealthy season. There was no reason. There's no reason that this should have happened, that Deebo should have fallen this far. And we're going to talk about keepers later. He's probably one of the best keepers you can get, without a doubt.
Yeah. For me, I want to talk about Davonte Smith because Davonte Smith is under the radar, been a top 25 fantasy wide receiver. He's position ranks at 20 right now, back-to-back weeks with exactly 22 fantasy points. He had a couple duds in there, a 2-point game, a 5-point game, a 3. But the Eagles are an inconsistent football team. So when the Eagles show up, it's when this guy shows up and Jalen Hurts is building chemistry with him. So, if you have Davonte Smith, and again, in a keeper league, that's a good keeper for next year for sure. On to the tight ends. Travis, we got to talk about the dud wide receivers. Amari Cooper, 9.1. Mike Williams has been living in this category for like a month now. Mike Williams at 7.3. DJ Moore, 6.4. DK Metcalf, 5.6. Tyler Lockett, 4.3 due to Russell Wilson and his big old L up there. And then A.J. Brown at 3.3. So I'm going to talk A.J. Brown. I've been on the AJ Brown train for a couple weeks after he got that hamstring injury, right? He's been a monster. He's not been a guy that you really wanted to face off against. And it's just a weird game against the Saints. I don't know exactly why he didn't score. Marshawn Lattimore is probably the reason why he got shut down. But last 2 weeks, 9.2 and 3.3. But before that, 16, 27, 31. I'm not super worried about him. He's going up against Houston next week. He's going to have a monster week, probably top 3 wide receiver in the week. But AJ Brown's a guy you drafted in round like 2 or 3, and I said he was being overdrafted. This is kind of why. You probably lost a week because your wide receiver 1 only scored 3 points.
I'm going to actually take the opposing opinion on AJ Brown. This was a bad game for Brown, but the last 4 weeks prior, he was the wide receiver 2. That's impressive. That's a guy that was worth his ADP for that 4-week stretch. Does he bounce back? I think so, because I think that this team, the only thing they realized in this game, if you watched it, was when you're not utilizing AJ Brown in this offense, your offense is really, really, really struggling. Like without Derrick Henry and Julio Jones now on IR, I think Derrick Henry's out another 4 weeks guaranteed. This team's going to struggle unless they go to their wide receiver 1, which is AJ Brown. They're still the number 1 seed, so they're not rushing Henry back. They're not rushing Julio. They get in the playoff picture. They're dangerous to beat any team in the league. But AJ Brown's going to be who you have to run your game through if you want to go win games. And I think that they realize that this week. I think he bounces back, no problem, delivers. Next week has no problem being the top 10 wide receiver that you drafted rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Now on to tight ends. Travis Kelsey, tight end 1. He's been the tight end 1 for a couple of weeks now. It feels like 19.9. Hunter Henry, 19.7. Tight end 2. Tight end 3, Mark Andrews, 18.3. And Dan Arnold, tight end 7, 13.7. Who's your biggest tight end stud of the week, Nick?
Travis Kelsey. He's tight end 1 again. There's a reason why everybody tries and debates that Darren Waller is better and George Kittle is better. For fantasy purposes, Kittle is the clear-cut tight end 1 year after year after year. He's just so consistent. He's so consistent. I don't know why I picked Darren Waller to outscore him on the year. It makes no sense to me now. Travis Kelsey was a locked-in first-round draft pick. Everybody that owns Kelsey has an advantage every single week over the other tight end position. If you were able to get Kelsey in the second round, there should be no reason they shouldn't be in the playoffs unless you suffered a ton of injuries.
For me, I want to talk about Hunter Henry because he isn't consistent like most tight ends. However, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of his, 5 and 5, basically. He's at over 10 fantasy points. He's had a couple duds, a 4.3, 2 6s, but Mack Jones looks for him in the red zone, and that's a thing that you want in your tight end, especially with a rookie quarterback leaning on the tight end. I think he's a good streamer. It's such a thin position. We just saw Dallas Goddard went down, and obviously Logan Thomas and Kittle have been injured this season. So I think he's a good streamer option. So again, keep tabs on Hunter Henry if you want to carry a backup on your bench. I think he's a solid option. And the duds of the week, Darren Waller, tight end 19, 6.4 points, and Knicks guy Dalton Schultz with 2.4 points against that stinky Atlanta defense. And I actually did say on last week's show, Dalton Schultz is a guy you should stay away from because the Atlanta defense does play well against tight ends. I was right on that. They do not play well against wide receivers, though. So, Nick, you want to talk about
They
Dalton
don't play
Schultz?
well at all. Darren Waller, you're letting me down. You started week 1, 19 targets, led the league in targets at the tight end position. And ever since, you've kind of been a disaster for your 3rd overall draft pick. Come on, it's time to bounce back. Coaching staff, you don't have Henry Ruggs. You don't have your over-the-top threat. Your running game is not good at all. Brian Edwards has been very solid the last few weeks, but I'm sorry. Darren Waller, this team, the only way that they get into the playoff picture is that they run the game plan through Darren Waller, and they're not doing it. You got to do it. End of story.
I do want to mention that one thing that I've taken away from this season is I always want that early tight end just so I can just set it every week, and I went all in on Kittle. And Kittle had a good week, don't get me wrong. This week he had a good week, but I was very disappointed with him before this week, and it's week 11. I'm not going all in on the tight end next year, Nick, unless it's Travis Kelsey. I'm not.
Right.
Waller, Kittle, they're Kelsey. You want to talk about expectations? I can talk about Mahomes. Kelsey, expectation is up here, fantasy purposes, and this is where he is. It's not expectation reality, it's expectation. That's where he is, the model of consistency. Because people thought that Waller and Kittle were here. They're closer to here. There's a gap. There's number 1. Then there's a gap. Quarterbacks in fantasy with Mahomes, people think Mahomes is here. This is the gap between Kyler and Allen, and they might even be here. Kelsey, Gap.
Yep.
Alrighty, that is our studs and duds from week 10. Let's move on to the waiver wire. There's not many people to talk about. AJ Dillon has to be your number one target. If he's on your waiver wire, go get him. He's owned in 59% of leagues, so he's probably not available, but hey, if he is, go get him. Also, Mack Jones, 14% of leagues. If you need a streamer quarterback playing Thursday night against the Falcons, worst defense you could probably play. That's a good option. And Dan Arnold, only owned in 27% of leagues, has become possibly Trevor's favorite target. Possibly. So I would go get Dan Arnold if you need a tight end. So, Nick, I don't know if you want to say anything about these guys. But again, we're at the point of the season where there's just not many guys on the waiver wire. Also, Mark Ingram, if he's available. I don't know if he is. He didn't even play
Ingram, a couple of the names I throw out there is Ingram, Cam, Andre Stevenson.
Yeah. All right.
I don't think I'd play any of them yet, but I'd feel comfortable holding all of them. Dan Arnold, I think you can start now. AJ Dillon, you can start now. And then Mack Jones against Atlanta, home run.
All righty. We are now going to talk about some guys, if you're in a keeper league or if you're in a dynasty league, anywhere where you could trade. So we're basing this off me and Nick's league. Our league, you could keep any player drafted round 6 or later. So if your team has 2 wins, 3 wins, if you know your season's over, it's a good opportunity to go find that keeper if you don't have one already. Trade your stud player and go get a keeper. So, you know what, Nick? I want you to lead this segment off right here. I want you to talk about the trade that you tried to make last week that got vetoed by 8 other members of the league. So tell the viewers or listeners your record and why this was your route last week. This is before this week. This is week after week 9.
So I was 3-6 going into this week. Still only 2 games out of playoffs, but I knew if I lost one more week, the route to get to winning would be tough. And it's not good enough where I'm going to make the play. Where if I make the playoffs, my roster, if not healthy, was not good enough. I have no depth whatsoever on my team. My team was built purely as star-studded players. It's Zeke. It was Kareem Hunt, Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill. I forget who I played. Or Tyler Higbee at tight end, so not really that good. Flex players were Tyler Lockett, Chase Claypool. So I'm really banking on the stars to just show out, and I had no depth. So my rationale was if these guys aren't healthy and I got all these bye weeks coming up, I'm probably not getting into the playoffs. And if I'm not, I just want the best keeper that I can get next year. So the number one keeper that me and Nick, I think, clearly agree on, it's Jamar Chase, and it's not questionable. Jamar Chase has been a top 5 NFL receiver. Let's forget about rookie receiver. Let's forget about rookie. As an NFL player, he's outperforming Justin Jefferson so far last year. He's been phenomenal. He's been nothing short of it. He is probably guaranteed to be a 3rd-round pick or better next year. So me saying, all right, I got this star power. I got no point to it. I might as well go try and, we have kind of a respect thing in our league where even if you're tanking, you still play a playable lineup. You don't just, screw people over.
I force people to. You have to play a playable lineup or I will penalize your draft spot. If you don't play a playable lineup, I will bump your draft spot down. It's happened.
Yeah, for example, there's no picking up J.K. Dobbins, who's a good keeper because he went undrafted, and putting him in your starting lineup because he's not playing. He's hurt.
You can pick him up and he could be your keeper. He could be your keeper, but you can't.
Exactly. So because of that, I said, okay, Jamar Chase is worth the rest of the season and all of next season. I instantly, no matter what, if I get Jamar Chase, if there's odds on a fantasy team, I'm gonna have the number 1 odds, especially because I'm probably having the number 1 or 2 overall pick. So I offered Ezekiel Elliott, which I thought was fair rest of the year, and Tyreek Hill, who would be fair for a full season. And I said, just give me Jamar Chase, because if I get Jamar Chase, I'm pretty much the equivalent of getting 2 star players, 1 this year and 1 next year, for 2 star players this year. The league instantly vetoed the trade, saying it's too lopsided because one team gets too overpowered. And my rationale is, you could say that every single person in either position would say, no, it's not, because you're getting 2 star players. The person I'm trading for, I'm trading away. He's riding or dying on this fantasy season. He wins this year. He made his money. He's the winner. End of story. He does not win the season. He gave up the chance at having the best team next year, starting your draft off with Jamar Chase and Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry, most likely. That's the team you're starting out with next year if you get Jamar Chase as your keeper and you're the number 1 pick. So my rationale was, That should be a fair trade because if I have a chance to get 2-star players that are going to make me the title favorite going instantly, it's fair enough where I could give up 2-star players this year.
I do want to say this. Nick makes a good point here. However, it's not a fair trade to the rest of the league, and that's why it was vetoed. Yes, anybody would make it because you're both winning. You both are winning. The other 8 members of the league are losing, and that is why it was vetoed. I told Nick, do Tyreek Hill straight up. And I think that's a good option. So, yeah, I'm saying this. So, in our league, Jamar, we're going to list off some players that we think you should go trade for. Again, if you're in a keeper league, and you're in a similar situation to us, our league is round 6 or later. You get 1 keeper. Or if you're in a dynasty league, these are some guys that you should go target. So I'm gonna tell you the rounds that they were also drafted at. So round 6,
just for perspective, full PPR,
and some bonuses in there too. 10-man league. Yep. Jerry Jeudy round 6, and the other thing is that we also had keepers. So. I guess you could say that these guys are drafted around later, technically.
Yeah. So I for example, I had Chase Claypool who would have been drafted 7th round.
Right. Yeah.
But you cannot. I think we made the rule you can't keep year over year.
Yeah. So Jerry Jeudy round 6, Jamar Chase round 7, Kyle Pitts round 7, Davonte Smith round 8, Deebo Samuel round 8. Davonte Smith, Jalen Waddle, round 9, Michael Carter, round 10, Marquise Brown, round 11, and Michael Pittman, round 11. So, Nick, how about you give me your top 3 trade targets if you could do a deal like this and give me one, just straight up, one player you would trade for him?
So, for example, Jamar Chase, if you're not winning you should be winning the title if you have Cooper Kupp. If you could give up Cooper Kupp and go get Jamar Chase because you're not winning the playoffs because your team's got injuries, go do it. Go give up the number 1 wide receiver and go get the best keeper going into next year. Give up whatever it takes. It doesn't make sense if you're not making the playoffs not to give up your star player for your star player next year. If you're in a money league and you're paying year over year, it's worth it. If you can go into next season and you're going to have a top 5 pick, let's say the worst pick out of the top 5, which is probably going to be Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor next year. If you're getting one of those and you're pairing him with a wide receiver 1, a top 5 wide receiver this year, you're an instant title favorite. Not a question. None of these guys, all these guys are solid. You know, they're good keepers. They're solid keepers. They're going to perform well for your team. None of them are number 1 at their position. None of them are going to be in the top 3. Maybe I think Deebo might slide inside the top 4. Kyle Pitts maybe in the 4th or 5th because of the tight end scarcity. But that's really it from the rest of the guys that we just heard. Jamar Chase, to me, is the clear-cut number 1.
To me, I think Deebo, he's number 3 right now in the season. I don't know where Chase is. I'd have to look that one up. And
Chase was number 3 before the
So Deebo's been really impressive, not just for 1 year, for 2 years. He's not having a sophomore slump. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 over there, no matter who quarterback is. So I would go get Deebo Samuel. Again, if you trade your stud, just at this point, trade your stud. Last year, I traded James Robinson to get Kelsey. I was in that situation. I traded James Robinson, who would have been my keeper, to get Travis Kelsey. I did win the points. I had the most points in the league by over 200, so I won money. I didn't win the championship, but I did win money. Kelsey didn't make that much of a difference. He helped, but I would have won the points either way. I hoped he would bring me to a championship, but so yeah, trade your stud. Trade your stud at this point. You can. It's fine. You could trade your stud. So I would have Deebo. My 3 would be Deebo, Chase, and I would round it out with Kyle Pitts because the tight end position is so scarce. So if you could go into next year already having Kyle Pitts, he's proven to be a top 5 tight end. He's young, especially if you're in a dynasty league too. Go get Kyle Pitts. Again, those are my top 3. Who would you round out with Chase?
So I have Chase 1, I have Deebo 2, and then I have a tie at 3 between Michael Pittman and Michael Carter.
I wanted you to talk about Pittman, so
I love Michael Pittman. I loved him going into the year. He's phenomenal. Frank Reich knows how to use him. With T.Y. Hilton not really playing, and he's only on a 1-year deal, it's very likely Michael Pittman's the wide receiver 1 there again next year. No questions asked unless they bring in like an Allen Robinson.
Now, what would you trade for Pittman? Are you doing the same thing you're doing for Chase, or give me a guy that you would trade for a Pittman? Because the guys that I listed, like I would say Kyle Pitts. Maybe I'm not trading Cooper Kupp, but I'll trade like. Trying to think of a good one off the top of my head. I don't know. Maybe I'd trade like a Justin Jefferson. I mean, he's been a top 10 wide receiver. I wouldn't trade a top 5 wide receiver. I'd trade like a top 10 or 15. I would trade you can't keep DK. I would trade DK to get like Kyle Pitts or I would trade DK to get Kyle Pitts to keep him.
I think that's where you're looking. You're looking at the bottom of the top 10, early of the top.
For Pittman, yeah. So you would trade like DK for Pittman, you're saying?
DK, AJ Brown, any guy in that tier range, I think you can get away with. For Michael Carter, I already put a trade out in my league. It might get vetoed. I don't think it should, and I'll fight till the day it's over. I offered Elliott straight up for Michael Carter.
Do you think you value him more because you're a Jets fan, though?
No, because since the Jets bye week, Michael Carter is leading running backs in targets, or he's number 2 to make.
The running back position is also so much thinner, so it's even tougher to do a trade like that when a trade
exactly. So when I'm offering Zeke, obviously Zeke's the better running back at this point. He will be the better running back for the rest of the season, like by a pretty wide margin.
I would trade Aaron Jones for Michael Carter. If you have Aaron Jones,
that's a good one.
I would trade Aaron Jones, get him out of there.
If you're dealing with Derrick Henry injury and someone in your league has Michael Carter's making the playoffs, go trade Derrick Henry straight up. Derrick Henry's not going to see the field to the playoffs, if at all.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Shot.
And here's one for you before we get out of here. Are you trading for Derrick Henry if you're a playoff team? And what are you trading for him? What are you trading for him, though?
I mean, it depends on what the team needs. I mean, if the team needs a running back right now that's going to go get him into the playoffs, if Chris Carson's coming back, Carson you're trading for.
If you're the number 1 team in your league right now, you're 8-2 or 8-2.
Yeah. What
are you trading to get Derrick Henry right now? You know that you're in the playoffs. Are you trading like what's that line? Are you trading like I'm trying to think. Chris Godwin. Would you trade like Chris Godwin, or would you trade? I'm trying to think of any middle of the pack player.
I wouldn't trade Godwin only because Godwin's been too consistent to this point. But I would be willing to trade.
Would you trade Daryl Henderson?
Yes.
Or what about James Robinson?
Robinson, I wouldn't, just because playoff schedule for him is really good.
Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson.
Easily.
Okay. What about, let's see if there's any middle of the pack receiver. What about Amari Cooper?
That's a good one. Cooper struggled recently. I would shoot the shot, I would say. If you have enough depth at the wide receiver position. Yeah.
Last one, AJ Brown. This is to get Derrick Henry thinking that he could play 2 playoff games for you. You have a bye.
I'd have to keep AJ Brown.
All right. Yes, that was our trade segment. Again, these are not logical trades unless you're in a keeper league or a dynasty league. Again, we're not telling you in a standard league to do this trade because you would get it vetoed very quickly.
Just one more player that we did not talk about, which I'm throwing in there, Antonio Brown. Go get him.
That's a really tough one due to age and other.
I
just feel like he's a head case.
But points per game, he's top 5 in the.
I know. And I saw a stat earlier. The Bucks are like 4-1 with AB, and I think 2-3 without him, or something like that.
That's this year. If you count the playoffs last year, that they lost 1 game with Antonio Brown.
Yeah, they don't lose games with Antonio Brown because that's Tom Brady's favorite target, but nobody wants to admit it. Anyway, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. Let them know to come listen to our future episodes. The next time you'll hear from us will be this Friday on November 19th. We'll have a good show for you guys. Sorry we missed last week. Personal conflicts, a little bit of car stuff going on, but that's okay. So we'll talk to you guys on Friday. The audio version of that show, as always, will be on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor. If you're on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. And the video version will be on YouTube, as always, at Primetime Fantasy Podcast. If you want to support us on social media, and please do, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is PrimeTimeFFPod. The YouTube and Facebook is Primetime Fantasy Podcast. Nick, as the newest owner of the Packers, I'm proud to share this mic with you. And thanks for joining us today, guys. We'll talk to you on Friday.